Hello my loyal companions, welcome back to the channel and to another episode of Rogue Revealed, the series where I take you through everything you need to know about Rogue Company. In today's episode I wanted to give you an updated version of my controller settings for Rogue Company, as this has changed a little bit since my last video and I thought it would be useful to you guys just to go over the different elements of the controller settings so you know what might be best to use. If you do go on to enjoy or find this helpful at all, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, but for now, let's get into it. Okay, loading up into the settings, we'll start with display settings. Brightness is just something you need to adjust for your monitor, whatever you find most useful. The ones in display that I think are the most important for you to adjust for is one, motion blur. This needs to be turned off. Motion blur does not help you. If anything, it inhibits you. And ADS blur is the same. Safe frame, I would recommend keeping it 100%, but kind of depends on your monitor. With the colorblind settings, now I know for a few games this is actually really good to sometimes use some of the colorblind settings, even if you're not colorblind. Of course, if you're colorblind, use whichever one applies best to you. But sometimes they can help visually, even if you're not colorblind, at just making some things pop out a bit more. In this game, everything's so vibrant anyway, I don't think it really matters, so I would only really use this if you are actually colorblind. Audio, generally I have all the audio on. I know in a lot of games you can turn music volume off. I just think it's fine. I don't think it's that inhibiting. And to be fair, with the game bugs at the moment, I don't hear the music most of the time anyway. And then voice chat volume, you can adjust to whatever sound settings is best for you. Now the controller settings are the one that you're going to find most useful. Now for the movement settings, turn hold to crouch, hold to sprint, and auto sprint all off. I would rather have the toggle effect for all of these, as it's just more useful and means I'm in a bit more control of my movement, particularly auto sprint. I do not like that for controller. I don't mind it for mouse and keyboard, but that's really because I struggle with the movement slightly more on there. But for controller, keep it off. Getting into the juicy part, you want to know is the sensitivity, dead zone, and things like that. Well, if we look at my horizontal sensitivity, I have this at 7. The reason I have this kind of high, and I would say this is slightly towards the higher end of what you'd want, is because I like to be able to move and hip fire with a bit more speed than I would potentially something else like when I'm aiming down sight. Being able to move and look around the camera when you're not aimed down sight is really important because the third person's perspective is so crucial, and then looking left and right to your corners is also really important. So having slightly higher sensitivity here, for me, works best. With vertical sensitivity though, I have this down at 4. The reason for this is there's not a lot of height adjustment that is needed in the game. There's not a lot of multi-levels. Obviously with the new map Lockdown, that adds some element to it, but even then it's just one tower. It's not like you're trying to deal with a lot of height in any of the maps or any of the game modes. So I have this at 4 for more precise vertical movement, so I can just adjust those headshots slightly more carefully. That tends to be more important for me than the horizontal adjustments that I make. When you take that down into the ADS sensitivity, so this is the sensitivity you have when you actually aim down your sight, not fully scoped in, that's a different setting, but just aim down your sight. I have this at 50% each. These are all a percentage value of the two up here. I have them at an equal amount because then they adjust for the same level. They're like scaled the same, and it just feels more natural to have them decreased by the same amount. And then 50% I choose just because that's what I find the most comfortable. With sensitivity generally, and what you'll see is that you need to play around with it. Not everyone's sensitivity is going to be the same. What I find really good, you may not. It can depend on the size of your monitor or a bunch of other factors, so you just need to go into the shooting range and play around with your sensitivity to know what is best for you. It's an individual thing. Personally, if I'm going to give you a recommendation of scale, I wouldn't go below 3 and I wouldn't go above 8. Now going to dead zone, this is something that is actually really important, and you should try and learn what it is. To give you an explanation of what it does is the lower the dead zone, the less input you have to put on your thumbsticks for it to actually register in the game. If you have a really high dead zone, you have to make quite big movements before it starts to register that in the game. So what this allows you to do is make micro movements by adjusting your dead zone to the lowest value you can. By having it really low, it means that I can make these very small movements with my thumb, and they're far more precise to what I actually want them to do. I'm not having to make slightly bigger movements to do the same small movement. The smaller the movement I make, the smaller movement it makes on the screen, and that is the perfect balance you want. It just means you can be a bit more precise. Now I have these at 0.1 and 0.06. The reason they're not smack bang down at the bottom is because you have to adjust on controller for some sort of stick drift or sort of getting your thumbstick stuck. The best way to test your optimal level is just to go into the shooting range, whack them down to the bottom, and then you'll probably see that your controller in some way is either moving your aim by itself, or if you try and move your thumbstick where it's stuck, and you'll start running in the same direction even when you're not holding it down. This is your stick drift that is kicking in, and you need to put them up to the point where that stick drift isn't coming into play as much anymore. You want to be able to have your controller resting normally and you just not move at all, so it's dead accurate with what you want, and then you have the lowest dead zone you can without affecting stick drift, but still allowing you to make those micro adjustments I was on about. So for me, on my controller, I have slightly more stick drift on my left thumbstick, my movement stick, because I absolutely batter it. So I have this at 0.1, but my right thumbstick, the one I use for aiming, is at 0.06, because my stick drift doesn't kick in until about 0.5. Going on to then acceleration boost and your acceleration boost multiplier. So for people who don't understand what this is basically when you try and move your thumbstick, your aim stick, to the furthest edges of the thing, it will start to accelerate the speed at which you turn. So what you'll notice is if you try and do like a 360, you'll go quite slow, then it'll go faster and faster and faster until you hit a maximum speed of turning, and you'll just zip round a bit like a nutter, depending on the speed that you have up. For me, really, unless you're going for the absolute maximum or the absolute minimum, you're really not going to get anything out of this. It's not a super impactful setting. Just having it sort of the halfway point for each is what I find best. Again, you're really not going to run into much issue with it. The only way I would kind of recommend doing it, though, if you're really unsure, is just button them both down to 0. You don't need the acceleration boost. It was actually pointed out to me by Mario Micro, part of Mario Gaming, is that having it at 0 probably means that there's less randomness to the movement. You can just train it with muscle memory a little bit more. So I would recommend that if you're just unsure about what to do for acceleration boost, put it to 0, 0. It's really not going to matter at all for you. For me, I just prefer to have this setting. It's just what I've been used to. It's what I've been playing with, and I kind of like to have the acceleration boost personally so that I can whip around corners a bit more. The point at which it actually kicks the acceleration in is not enough to really change your aim movements. It doesn't accelerate during the point where you're aiming or trying to shoot. It will only do it when you're really trying to whack that thumbstick across and try and do big movements. And for me, that is only happening when I'm actually moving around the map and checking corners, which, to be fair, I'd rather have quite fast anyway. My ADS mode is hold, so I can hold down the button to ADS and it retracts when I let go of it. That's generally the best for most shooters, so I would recommend that. Then I have my horizontal controller scoped sensitivity and the vertical scoped sensitivity. So this will affect things like Saints Assault Rifle, Phantom Sniper or Phantom's DMR, anything that has an actual scope to it like an FPS shooter. This is what that's going to adjust for, and personally, again, I just prefer having it at 50-50, the same as I do for the normal ADS look. I do not invert my Y-axis, I keep the radial wheel on hold. The vibration I have to on, you can remove that if you like, it really doesn't matter. I don't find it that disruptive to the game. And then we have the reload interact button. I have this both on press to interact and press to reload. So that means that instead of having to hold to pick up a weapon, I just tap it and it picks it up, and to reload, I just tap it to reload. This is generally fine in almost every single circumstance, unless you're playing Talon, because you can look at things at a really, really long range and start trying to pick them up. When I play Talon, I will adjust this to press to interact and hold to reload. That generally is better on Talon, because otherwise you're just starting to pick up things from a distance using the mag gloves when you actually need to reload, and it's really frustrating. And then a hold time and double press time I had down at the lowest, just so it's the faster input. My bindings are actually the same basic bindings that you have in the game for the controller. I think they did a really good job at mapping it. The only thing that's slightly different from me is that I do have a scuff controller, as you can see here. I have these two paddles, and I have one set to my A button, which is my jump, and the other one set to my roll, so I can really roll and jump fluidly, and that really helps with my movement in the game. Gameplay settings, I have quick cast on. This means that I can actually see the trail of what I'm about to throw. I do like that. Auto pickup I have off. Again, I'm kind of precise enough to be in control of what I am picking up and what I'm not, so having auto pickup off is fine for me. Obviously, I'm English. Display numbers I have on, and accumulatively display I have off. So basically what that is when you shoot someone, the display numbers will tell you how much damage you're doing to them, and the accumulative will mean that the numbers that show are a stack of how much damage you've done in total, not like individual damage. So say your gun does 19, if you have a cumulative display off like I do, you'll see 19, 19, 19, 19 for hitting those shots. If you have accumulative damage turned on, you'll see like 38 or 57 for the accumulative damage of them added together. And then social, I switch between East and Europe. I can't play on West, it's just slightly too laggy. East is fine though, that's where I play with my competitive team. Europe is obviously my main server though, being from Britain. And then crossplay, I turn on and off depending on the kind of mood I'm in. Obviously that's a whole hardware issue debate that I'm not going to get into in this video, but I will turn it on and off depending on what I want or what the team wants, or just generally how I'm feeling in that moment. I don't see an issue with turning it on or off really. Okay then guys, that's going to take us to the end of the video, and I do hope this was helpful just to understand about how the settings work and see my settings and what I use to be optimal in my games. If this did help, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/RadtharGaming to see how these settings make me play in real time. There I do give you some guides, some educational content, and do play competitively in tournaments. All the links you need are in the description below. Other than that guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll see you in the next video.